All right. Welcome back, guys. I know it's been eons since we've last recorded, but my co-host over here, Franklin, was enjoying himself some nice sunbathing in Hawaii. How are you doing? How you doing,
I'm
Franklin?
doing great. Doing great. Finally came back from the nice waves and the ocean in Hawaii. But yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah. Well, doing fine. Sports fan me is not doing too fine. But uh, so I think we should just get into it. The first thing I
For sure.
think we need to talk about is well, I got all this get up on. It's official. Coach K announced, or Coach K's brass and that whole crew announced that he'll be retiring at the end of next year, at the end of our junior year, 2021-2022 season. And then John Shire will be named coach in waiting. Uh, so I guess, man, this was a wild day because like that. I mean, that same day was also when my favorite NBA team, the Celtics, Danny Ainge stepped down and Brad Stevens became the GM. Like there was so much happening that day. And then later that night, the Clippers lost to the
Maverick.
Mavericks. Oh, what a crazy sports day! But so I think when I saw it, it was I'll just I'm gonna get my 2 cents in here. Uh, I mean, I thought this was coming. He's old. He's 70. He's in his
74, right?
70s. He's 74. Uh, it's only fair. I think that COVID season must have been super taxing on this man. And I genuinely, me and a couple of our shared friends, were thinking, it's going to be at the end of our senior year because Savarino's his grandson. He's our grade. So he's going to retire the same time that like Savarino's going to be done with his playing career at Duke. So I thought it would be 2 years from now. Turns out, nope, jumping the gun. I think COVID, coaching through that COVID season and not being able to, coach in that, what, the year before that when we had Trey Jones and a decent squad with Justin Robinson rounding into form, right? I think having the tournament just stripped away like that, it just kind of hit him these past 2 years. And he's old, and there's probably more on top of it than just those two. I mean, can't read into his mind. So I don't, you know, I can't get mad at him for it. Like objectively, I got to say this was a good decision for him. Uh, but I don't know. Part of me is thinking the news flipped. What if in the morning, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., we found out Coach K was retiring, and then, you know, we found out at like 2 p.m., 3 p.m. that Brad Stevens was stepping down. Like, you know, oof, the news cycle would be frenzy. I would have, you know, but I think, yeah. What are your 2 cents, man? Those are my two
Uh,
cents.
yeah, I do agree with that. I think it is it is a tough day, I think, for a lot of Duke fans. When you really think about it, Coach K is Duke basketball. He is the guy that built the entire program. He is the guy that I think Duke really, if you really think about it, I think they had one Final Four appearance before Coach K arrived. Um, yeah, basically built up the entire program by its roots. 5 national titles, winning his coach in Division I history. Yeah, you just can't talk praise high enough for how well he has done, and how much success he's had at this institution. I think John Shire, like we'll get into this later and like how that will work, but I really think that having that 1 year kind of like learning curve to like actually say that you're going to be the next head coach. We're going to have you like have this time to like let you get that 1 year notice. I think that helps. I think that it's really good actually because it really like focuses on like okay, getting you like ready, getting that like time off. Like it's kind of like when I think about kind of like the Mahomes, I'm going to sit on a bench a year while watching Alex Smith play, and then I'm going to come in and then be ready, hopefully. But yeah, I think I think this is something that it had to happen. He is getting up there in age. I thought personally that he'd maybe beat Jim Boeheim at Syracuse in terms of like who would retire first, but he said it was a purely family decision, and I get it, and respect to him, and we'll watch for one last season as Duke fans. So
Oh yeah. Of course. I think if I'm being, I mean, I'm a Duke fan here, and we go to Duke, and I've been a Duke basketball fan for a bit. But if we're being objective, sometimes you got to take that. Uh, Duke is Coach K. I think Coach K has elevated Duke to where it will definitely withstand beyond that, like after he leaves. Uh, Even if Shire may not be the best, like Nike alone will just, in the Duke alumni base, as far as basketball is concerned. I mean, also in general, but the Duke basketball alumni, like it's going to have such credence that it'll still continue throughout. I don't think it'll die down completely.
right.
Even if, you know, I definitely, I mean, of course, it's the GOAT. After the GOAT, there's going to be a drop off. And I mean, John Shire has that. I mean, he had that one game experience against Boston College. We should have won by more than one, but that might have been more just how our team was constructed and everything, but than his coaching per se. But yeah, I think you're right. Also, Coach K, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to still have like some role. I feel like with Duke, it's
Oh,
not going to be coaching, but I think
bet.
he'll still be in, maybe not in the building, but he'll be outside the building, but he'll be like right next to it. So in a way, what I'm saying is, I think he'll help ingratiate John Shire even more, even after he's left and John Shire is the full head coach. I think he'll still be with the program, and I think he'll still have that cachet with him. And he's just all about basketball. I think he's just going to stick with it. But I think like coaching is just very taxing, and I think it's fair that he needs to retire, or
Absolutely.
he will retire. He's going to retire. I think it's fair that he wants to.
Right.
So uh, I guess that's I mean, we can gush on and on about, his accolades and what he's done and how thankful we are, uh and all of that. Uh but I think everyone else is going to be doing that. I mean, you have 5 championships, you got so many Final Four. And I think I mean, the most career wins, but I think what's the best is just that people might compare him to John Wooden and say like, well, John Wood has more championships. Like you can't really consider K the GOAT. Like you got to think about all the different eras that Coach K was able to navigate through, and like every time Duke was still the best program, or one of the best programs in each era. Whether it was his
Yeah.
early years, those early '90s years, and when he was with Dean, like rivaling with Dean Smith, and but they were still great. And then you got the one and done era, and you're thinking, oh, Duke's not going to work because of the players that they're used to getting. And then he just finds a way to use that cachet and coach these young guys. I mean, 2015 alone, like, I mean, we had a freshman point guard, we had a freshman shooting guard, we had a freshman center. I mean, Quinn Cook was like the only upperclassman of like true note, if I'm not mistaken. Like the rest were like, you know, genuine underclassmen. And I think just the way he's been able to navigate through, I mean, 2010 and, just all of these championships, the different areas able to do it to consistently the way he's able to win. Like having the most number of wins, and like, let's say you were at Gonzaga, right? Right now, we're thinking it's possible that Mark Few at Gonzaga could, be on track to beat Coach K's, record for most wins. But it's because Gonzaga doesn't have to play really anybody in conference during the regular season. Coach K's had to do this ACC, which I mean, the past year or two is dropped off. But I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The ACC, I think, is the best college basketball conference, on average.
Oh yeah.
So what he's able to do, I think that's all I'll say as far as the gushing is concerned for Coach K. What more do I need to say? I mean, it just breaks beyond just college basketball. He's considered a GOAT in, I wouldn't consider him that, but he's considered a GOAT in all of coaching in sports. By some people, I mean, he's just so I don't know if you want to add any more gushing to it, any more praise to Coach K.
Well, I think I might transition a little bit, but like of course, like I could go on for days in terms of like just giving him accolades. He deserves all of that for sure. I think when I came to like think about like why, maybe like some of the reasons why he left, for me, like personally, I thought about how this era nowadays, it's changed so much. I think Coach K, when people say, and a lot of his former players say this too, when he, really gets to know you and his players stay for at least more than 1 year, but usually like 2 or 3 years, he gets the most out of you, basically. You do like really ingrained into the Duke brotherhood, kind of like basketball kind of culture. You get to know that you're like a selfless teammate, that you're working part as a team instead of an individual. And this one and done era, and then nowadays with the G League and everything, playing overseas being more of a thing, it's just really cut into what he has wanted in terms of just building culture and just like doing what he wants to and what he liked to do. That's not said that he hasn't adapted. He has very well, but like those roots are still something that like he really wants to do, and that hasn't. It's trending further away from what it used to be. So that could be another stepping reason for him to leave.
And I mean, this year might be the straw that broke the camel's back, like with the new transfer rules. I mean, think about how many of our players transferred, because now you don't have to take a year off when you transfer. You can transfer and play immediately. That's gonna have a huge ripple effect across college sports, but I mean, including college basketball. And he's been an advocate for rules like these and for player empowerment. I mean, how what has happened in recent years, he's been an advocate for it. But at the same time, when you're that old, it's like you said, I mean, you might be an advocate for it in theory and in principle, but if you like to have connections like that, it's definitely harder to make those connections when you have like these immediate transfer rules. And you have, although I don't think these new leagues, the more new leagues that pop up, the less status these new alternatives to college basketball have. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would be best for those alternatives if they really wanted to make a dent in college basketball, like team up into one league, and then because there's so many like there's this new overtime league from Jeff Bezos popping up. Like, there's so many of these like overseas leagues, or not overseas, but like in the U.S. alone, like leagues that'll pay high schoolers right out of high school to play. I guess it won't really make an impact on college basketball. They'll pay to get it. Point. I guess that's a huge digression, but point is, I mean, that's a fair point to make. I think it's hard to, I mean, you think you have a player and then all of a sudden they transfer, they just immediately go to the draft. And even if they might not get drafted, they have multiple avenues. And that could definitely be hard on a coach that's used to building relationships. So I guess if we want to transition, we can transition into, well, I mean, Jon Scheyer is going to be a head coach. I think this shows they were definitely thinking about staying in-house or staying in the Duke program. So I remember having this conversation with you this was in the school year. I think it was in the winter time. It was like late that night. You were talking about like what college coach would leave for, like what NBA coach would leave for like a college job. And I was like, I don't know. I think Brad Stevens could lead Celtics for Duke. And then I was like, there are some jobs like that. Like I mean, in Indiana, like Mike Woodson, he used to be an NBA head coach. I mean, he left for his alma mater in Indiana to be their head coach. But I think there's some programs like that and I thought Duke would be one of those like that. And I think I thought Brad Stevens was under some turmoil during that time. I guess, now we'll cover this in a different segment on those, storylines. But so I guess all of that theories, all of those high expectations I had, went out the drain. I went out the drain with this, which is not to say it's bad. I mean, I'll give Jon Scheyer the benefit of the doubt. It's not like, I feel like he's been there for a while as an assistant coach, and he was able to coach a game last year, I think. And if you have another year to marinate, to like, it's almost like a co-head. I think this year, if I'm not mistaken, it's almost going to be like a truly associate head coach, like where although Coach K will coach a lot of these games, I think he'll take more of a responsibility even with like head coaching. Like he'll maybe have more responsibilities on how like to do OTA, like, not OTAs, like after timeouts, like after timeout plays and stuff like that. He might even have more of a say than he would usually. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but we definitely now know that they were just playing in-house. I think also, I mean, again, as like a Duke fan, it might be irrational. I was thinking Brad Stevens, or if you want to keep it in family, Quinn Snyder, but I think he's doing so well at Utah that they might even have a chance at the finals. And I think, at that point, maybe you don't leave. But if you have a chance at the finals and it's a young team that you want to stay with, I guess they just thought, maybe we wouldn't have a shot at it. So, I mean, and he's up and coming in that role. So, yeah, right. I guess that's all I'll say is that I'll give Scheyer the benefit of the doubt. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I did not too much research, but a little bit research in Scheyer. Number one thing that I know is that he's a pretty decent recruiter, actually. So that's really good.
Not just pretty decent. He's probably one of the best recruiters in this recent era.
Right. Yeah. He did. He does a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes and just like getting those big recruits. Like he was really pivotal in getting Zion. I think Paulo Banchero, like he was recruiting him as well,
and Tatum as well. So
yeah. So he has a pretty decent, actually not really good track record. Let me correct myself of recruiting. So I don't think that departments will have too much of a problem. X's and O's, having this one season sit behind Coach K, I think that will help a lot. And then potential candidates. I'm just saying, like, I was thinking someone more like in the college rank. So like a name that frequently comes up was Jeff Capel. But I think Capel's like his strength in recruiting, I think Scheyer offsets. So that wasn't really like anything that I guess like was like needed. It's just that Capel's had some time at Pitt now to like be a head coach and have that head coaching experience, or like a Bobby Hurley out in Arizona State. But it's all good. I think Jon Scheyer is in a position to be successful. He is set up for success. He's not being thrown into the fire, as you would say. So I think hopefully that is something that he'll thrive and succeed. Maybe not to the level of Coach K, but essentially it will not be like a steep drop off and like Duke basketball will be wiped off the face of the earth. That's not going to happen. Like he is competent, and I trust that enough to we'll be fine. So I'll say.
Yeah, and I also think age might have to be a factor too. I mean, this guy, he's definitely younger than like the rest of these coaching candidates that you would think otherwise. And I think if they want to like restart, the potential to also go on another like 40-year run as a coach, let's just, if that were to happen, it would be nice. Like right. He's definitely young enough that you could go on that type of longevity, like super long run. As compared to these other coaches where they'd be like 10 years older or 20 years older.
Absolutely.
So I think that's fair to say. So yeah, man. it's definitely. I mean, we're gonna tent now. We got a tent. Now
I think
these
everybody's going
games.
to, honestly.
Everyone's
But
got.
yeah,
I just imagine like right after that, like already Duke UNC games like in Cameron are some of the most expensive tickets like for a sports game. Uh, just imagine what's going to be like this year on top of that having Coach K retire.
oh
Wow.
Lord, yeah.
And it's the last game of the regular season. It's just
Oh,
all of it's combining.
that's pretty spicy. Yeah,
Obama might come back. Who knows? Like something wild. We're gonna see some crazy famous people in the stands. So we got a tent.
absolutely,
I think we just got to.
for
But
sure, sure.
yeah, thank you, Coach K. I guess if we're being candid, the past few years, I feel like a lot of us Duke fans, especially ones on campus, I feel like, have kind of criticized K sometimes for like the way, uh, let's say for example, I'll straight up, I'll just say it. Uh, 2018, kind of a disappointment when your peak is the very first game of the year against Kentucky, and you still put so much on Zion's plate, and you just turn him into a de facto center when he's only 6'7". Like poor guy, you know.
Yeah,
It just feels like they really use Zion and were really ISO heavy. And I guess, you know, it's not like I'm not the greatest coach of all time. So what am I to say? But I feel like maybe it could also be that Trey Jones didn't develop a 3-point shot and RJ was kind of like really ball dominant as a shooting guard. Maybe they could have switched positions to where RJ wouldn't have the ball so much, even though he was really helpful. But it was so ISO heavy, and it felt like and even this year, I feel like a lot of people criticize Coach K. I think it was just the fact that COVID might have just screwed us over. Knowing that we were very careful as a campus, as like an institution, when it came to COVID, and these players didn't nearly get to practice as much as these other colleges were able to, and having such a young team with like that, I think. I mean, that ACC, the ACC, what's it called, a tournament,
tournament.
that
Yeah,
conference tournament kind of tells you we're kind of rounding into form over time. It felt like. So I wouldn't criticize him too much for that. But in 2019 was a good year. But I guess, you know, we've been saying, we as in Duke fans, not necessarily me, but other people I know, we've been saying like, oh, Coach K needs to leave or Coach K needs to retire. Like, it's kind of past him. And now that this has happened, I have not heard a single one of my friends that have said that like actually say they're glad that this happened. You know, it's like when it becomes a reality, everything changes. Like
right,
when it becomes a reality, you don't start saying like, "Oh, well, I'm glad he's retiring," or then you realize like, "Oh shoot, like this is gonna be over." So
right,
that's
exactly.
the whole why I wanted to bring all this up is to make that point that even all of these Duke fans that think the last few years have been disappointments, you know, it's easier said than when it actually happens. It's easier to say it, and then when you have to feel it in reality, it sucks.
Yeah, and this year, hopefully, we'll see. But road to number 6, it might just happen. We have a really
I
good
mean,
class this year, so
yeah. I think
we can
he
dream.
does well. He does well when we have a solid power forwards. I think I've noticed that solid big men. If he's able to have solid big men, he can coach up the guards. But I think if the big men aren't that solid, he has kind of a problem with it. It just in my what I've noticed is
Sure.
that he's good at coaching guards. So now having Banchero and Mark Williams in the second year, I think that's going to be a solid backcourt, and then you can try and develop, do some front court fit, not front court, do some
Other way around.
backcourt. Yeah, do some backcourt. I don't know. I always get them confused whenever I'm talking like this, but get some, backcourt coaching and stuff with that with Keels and Jesus Christ, why am I blanking? Who's our point guard? Roach.
Yes.
Keels and Roach, they were classmates. You know, having that chemistry. I think it could be a good year. I don't want to be too optimistic. If I'm being objective, I don't know if we're one of even the top 4 teams. Knowing that Gonzaga and UCLA are loaded heading into this year. So, but anything can happen. You know,
Anything
2015, even though we were one of the best teams, it was supposed to be Kentucky. We snuck in there. So it can happen.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, definitely.
Anything can happen. Yep.
Okay. Also, or just to take you behind the scenes with you guys. So the Denver Portland game is on right now. I have it on my phone on the side looking at it. Portland is up by nearly 20, and now they're down by 2 with 5 minutes left. While we're talking, Denver, I don't know what is going on.
We'll
Anyways,
definitely
that's
talk about that in a future segment, like really soon. So yeah.
All right. Well, I think this ends. This kind of caps our Coach K conversation. Unless you want anything more to add, you got the last word, man.
I mean, hey, one last ride. Let's make it good. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Well, what better place for a retirement party than New Orleans, man? I love New Orleans. It's a great city. That's not my quote. That's not my quote. I got to give credit where credit's due. But that's a true statement. All right.
That is true.